6:41, time for Morning Cup of Joe, and Metro Sheriff Joe Lombardo is joining us live today from Metro headquarters. Good morning, Sheriff. It's good to see you.
Good, and Alex, good to see you.
All right, I want to start with this today, Sheriff. The murder trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin in the death of George Floyd, it started last week. So when that verdict does come down, no matter what happens, there is a strong chance for demonstrations nationwide. Is Metro preparing for protests here locally?
Yeah, I would say that we are. I mean, fingers crossed like everybody else. But I think the important piece on this is to be proactive. And I believe we have at Metro been proactive in this, and that's communication with the community. Excuse me. I think it's very important to talk about this, right? Not keep our fingers crossed and hope it doesn't happen. In traditional police work, we prepare for the inevitable, and we over-commit, and then hopefully you can just de-escalate if it doesn't turn out the way is expected. In this case, there could be a plethora of happenings or decisions, acquittal, an indictment, dismissal. Even if there is an indictment, people may not be happy with the level of indictment, so that's the important thing to consider. So what we've done here at Metro, we proactively met with the community on several occasions prior to today, and we hope for the best moving forward. And when I mean by hope for the best, we hope for the best that the community is holding hands and they're together and they're talking about it versus causing destruction as a result of it. We have pretty good history here in community interaction and community engagement. And if you saw last week, we did the Metro Multicultural Advisory Committee press conference, and that was a press conference orchestrated by them, not me, not the government per se, and reaching out to the community and say, hey, have patience. We've had success here in the past with controversial issues because we've had that patient and we relied on Metro's response.
Right now, Sheriff, state lawmakers are considering several bills that would make it more difficult for police to use deadly force, including when dispersing protests. What are your thoughts on that? Well,
I think it's something that has constantly be looked at. Referenced on the heels of George Floyd and the incident there in Milwaukee or Minneapolis. We constantly have to talk about it, and here's the reason why. The use of deadly force is a very big issue. It's a very important issue, and it's important that the police departments explore the sanctity of life associated with the use of deadly force. And what I'm proud of here at LVMPD is we've been very proactive in that space. And it isn't because, we're the best of the best, even though I agree with that, and I would say that, but it's because we had warts upon us in the past, and we realized what was occurring in the deadly force space, and then we had to do something about it. So we've been very proactive in placing policies and training and procedures in place to make sure that we're utilizing deadly force appropriately and not just because we can. And I think we're progressive in that space. And so if you look at the legislature, back to your original question, they're addressing those issues, but those issues are more in line with law enforcement statewide versus LVMPD. A lot of the bills have been adapted, and modified to match our policy here at LVMPD to make it a statewide function versus an individual function. And and then the important pieces, the duty to render aid, the duty to intervene, those are the key components associated with George Floyd's incident, and those are issues that we've addressed previously.
Yeah, and it certainly has become a larger conversation since George Floyd's death last year, and it should be. So our last question here today, Sheriff, we've talked about a spike in car thefts and break-ins the past few months. Do you know what's behind this increase? Does Metro see a trend there?
Well, that's a great question, and to answer your question, no. But we could surmise in a couple of different ways. Yes, there has been a significant increase, 25% across the board in vehicle thefts, a lot lower than that in actual auto burglaries, around 2% increase. So when I say 25%, that's a big number because on an annual basis, we average around 7,000 vehicle thefts a year. So if you put that in the math associated with that, that's a big deal. And so we're addressing it, we're looking at it, and I think part of it is because people are out and about more, vehicles are being utilized more, a reference post-COVID, and this new phenomenon that's going on with catalytic converters and the rare earths that are located in those converters, and how much they cost now per pound in years past. So there's they may be stealing the car to eventually obtain the catalytic converter versus crawling under it and stealing it at the location where it's parked. So we haven't been able to put our finger on it yet, but we're paying attention. And I think the important piece on this is to educate the public, make them aware this is occurring, and be more vigilant associated with target hardening their individual vehicles. I mean, just this morning on my way here, I pull in the convenience store to get a cup of Joe, and there was an individual in the store left their car running out in front of the store, so they could run in and run out. But that's what people look for. They sit in parking lots and pay attention to that. Or if you leave your keys in your car in front of your house or in your garage, those are the kind of things that you need to be aware of and make it harder and more difficult for a crook to do what they do.
Yes, and don't leave the car running. All right. Sheriff Lombardo, it's great to see you. Thank you so much, sir. Have a great morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Alex.
All right, if you have a question for Sheriff Joe Lombardo, you can send it to us on our website, 8newsnow.com. Morning Cup of Joe is every Wednesday right here on Good Day Las Vegas.